Magi would even show up in the Bible. According to the Gospel of Matthew, 3 Zoroastrian Magi came to visit the baby Jesus.
Oh my god. Christianity is a copy from Zoroastrianism. I'm just kidding. The thing is, Zoroaster, he might have actually been a prophet, because we know in Islam... Alright guys, welcome back to Muslim Minds. I am Hamza, this is Rohaib, and we are going to be reacting to another Cogito video about Zoroastrianism Explained. So what I know about Zoroastrianism is, some people say it's the first monotheistic religion. And that's all I know. I don't know anything else about it. I know it originated somewhere like Persia, which is like Iraq area. I also know that, like the Sun Warriors in Avatar, they do worship fire. If you guys have seen season 3.
They have a force of light and a force of evil. That's what I've heard.
A force of light and
like kind of like a god.
Evil?
I don't want to say god because
like Avatar and the Fire Lord.
Okay, check it out.
What do Emperor Xerxes, Freddie Mercury, and Ireland's richest citizen, Pallonji Mistry, have in common? All of them are Zoroastrians, the ancient religion of Iran. This is one of the oldest ongoing religions and altered the course of human history by influencing Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek philosophy. But today it only has a fraction of the millions of followers it once had. So what is Zoroastrianism? What do Zoroastrians believe? And where do otters fit into all of this? Well, let's find out. Zoroastrianism was born in ancient Iran at least 3,500 years ago. It all began around 1,500 BCE, give or take a few centuries, with the Prophet Zarathustra, or Zoroaster, as the ancient Greeks called him, and so English speakers do too. While we call the religion Zoroastrianism, actual Zoroastrians tend to call it Mazdayasna, meaning Worshipper of Mazda. No, not that Mazda, but it actually was named after the Mazda that I'm going to explain shortly. Zoroastrianism was the chief religion of Iran for around 1,000 years. Between the 6th century BCE and the 10th century CE, it was the state religion of 3 huge Iranian empires. The Achaemenid Empire of 300 fame, along with the Parthian and Sasanian empires. Back then, the priests of Zoroastrianism were known as Magi. The ancient Greeks thought these Magi had secret magical knowledge since they understood complex astronomy. This led to the English words magic, mage, and magician. The Magi would even show up in the Bible. According to the Gospel of Matthew, 3 Zoroastrian Magi came to visit the baby Jesus.
Oh my god. Christianity is a copy from Zoroastrianism. I'm just kidding. The thing is, Zoroaster, he might have actually been a prophet, because we know in Islam
every
nation had
messenger.
So just because there's continuities in books doesn't mean it's a copy, guys. So should we say Christianity copied Zoroastrianism, or they copied Judaism? No. Just like they say the Quran just copies other stuff. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, so okay. Well, one thing I actually do want to make a point on about that is, Christians will say that Islam copied from, Christian apocryphal accounts and whatnot. But, I mean, couldn't the same case be made that the New Testament also read into the Old Testament and just matched Jesus's life story to the Old Testament, right? That's something you could say. I mean, yes, why would there not be old stories if we believe it's all from the same source? There are going to be a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
3 wise men, as they are known in English, are still celebrated by Christians around the world on January 6th. Eventually, the Sasanian Empire would fall to the Muslim Arabs during their invasion of Iran in the 7th century CE, which started the decline and persecution of Zoroastrians in Iran. Following this, in the 10th century, some Iranian Zoroastrians fled to India, forming the Parsi community, named after where they came from, which the Indians called Persia. This once refugee community now forms the largest group of Zoroastrians anywhere on earth, and they've settled in quite well. One of India's largest businesses, Tata Group, was founded by Zoroastrians, and Parsis played a massive role in...
Quickly about the Tata Group, I was actually contacted by a recruiter to work there, but they're really bad. If you ever guys have ever tried to get a job and dealt with Indian recruiters, you know what I'm talking about. They're pretty trash.
Winning Indian independence.
And not to be rude, but if you guys have ever tried to get a job on LinkedIn and have to deal with Indian recruiters, they're kind of like scammers most of the time.
independence from Britain.
Don't be offended, Hamza is Indian.
Yeah.
Zoroastrians can now be found all over the world. Historically, they've emigrated to areas such as Singapore, Hong Kong, and parts of Africa, such as the island of Zanzibar, where Freddie Mercury's Parsi parents would later emigrate from to the UK. In the last 100 years, small Zoroastrian populations have moved to the UK, US, Australia, and Canada.
14,000
Today, there are
US.
about 200,000
That's so
Zoroastrians left.
little bit
About
still.
60,000 live in India, while the second largest group of about 25,000 lives in Iran. With a religion being called Zoroastrianism, I think maybe it's about time we spoke about Zoroaster. We don't know much about Zoroaster's life. We can't even pinpoint when he lived. The Greeks thought he lived 6,000 years before the death of Plato, so around 6,347 BCE-ish, while modern historians place him somewhere around 1,700 to 1,000 BCE. During this time, the peoples of Iran believed in many different gods, some of which were similar to the gods of their ancient Hindu neighbours. What we do know is that Zoroaster was the priest of
They
the
probably inherited those gods, just intermixing with the culture. Makes sense to me.
pre-Zoroastrian religion of Iran, and that he was outraged by his society. Roving bands of drunken warriors would ravage the countryside. They pillaged, tortured, and slaughtered at will. The common
Vomiting
people
his
lived in
whole-
constant
everything.
fear and misery, while priests obsessed over obscure rituals and sacrifices that offered little guidance or hope to the suffering.
yeah,
Zoroaster
cute.
couldn't stand this injustice. So,
Exactly.
when he was 30 years old, Zoroaster went down to a river to fetch water for a ceremony. There, he received a vision from a being of pure light and goodness, Ahura
like
Mazda,
Gabriel.
who revealed that they were the one true God. The truth of how the universe worked was revealed to Zoroaster, and he knew that it was now his divine mission to spread this truth to his fellow humans. So, what are the core beliefs of Zoroastrianism? Well,
It's interesting if he believes that, if that's actually like they believe that he met God himself, or like if it's a continuation, which it might be, could be like the angel Gabriel, angel Jibril, which is in Christianity, Islam, and Jewish.
Well, yeah,
faith.
because you even have accounts even in the Old Testament of an agent of the Lord is sent to an individual. But this agent of the Lord is called Adonai himself, because Adonai means God, or it could mean God. But that's the thing; it's a broad term, could mean king, ruler, agent of the Lord. So I'm again from an Islamic perspective, knowing how things can change over time and theologies can evolve. Even modern day, like there are Protestant, Christian, sects that pop out of nowhere, and different religious like groups that just spring
Yeah.
with like even as like Islamically, there are deviant sects that come out and die fast, like the Ahmadis. They still are around, but they're so insignificant compared to the rest of the Islamic population. We don't even consider them Muslims. They're like the Mormons of Islam, pretty much, right? And they believe that some guy named Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is Imam Mahdi, and Isa alayhi salam, Jesus. So like an Islamic holy figure, and then Jesus, right? They believe he's two in one. So you see like this development and change in theology. They brought their own scriptures forward. So again, I would say from like a logical point of view and seeing how things even progress in the modern day, modern times, it's not that hard to believe that back then things could change, theologies could change and evolve, things could have been injected into the faith. This is exactly what Judaism thinks Christianity has done with Judaism. This is what Islam thinks Judaism and Christianity did with their own texts and religions and whatever. So I wonder if Zoroastrianism was founded by a true prophet and was corrupted over time.
1. Ahura Mazda and Angra Maniyu. Zoroastrians worship
Again, I say that with ignorance because we don't know much about Zoroastrianism, so just a thought.
But we'll learn.
Yes.
one uncreated, eternal god known as Ahura Mazda, which means wise lord. Zoroaster describes Ahura Mazda as the lord of order, something completely good, loving, infinitely wise, and the creator of the world and all good things. Ahura Mazda is supported by 6 holy immortals known as the Amesha. These 6 holy immortals are normally compared to archangels in Christianity, if that helps you kind of figure out what their position is. Sometimes there is a
It's actually crazy. At first, I was like, what the heck is this? But that actually makes sense if they're archangels. There's a lot of, what's it called? A lot of correlations, but it might just be some stuff that got messed up over time.
Yeah.
If we are if you want to hypothesize, is this connected to Abrahamic faith in a way? There's a lot of random stuff that is similar.
Yeah.
the 7th Spenta called Spenta Maniyu, but maybe he's also
Because
the
you know
Holy
how
Spirit.
people can take something and interpret it radically different.
Especially if there's no really like people trying to preserve it.
Exactly.
People just changing
This is the main argument with Catholics against Protestants. They say that we have our interpretation, our tradition, our history. You guys now have more sola scriptura. You don't really have tradition to back up your practices, right?
And this happened almost 2,000 years before Jesus.
Exactly. So I mean,
you-
imagine how over time the story had unfolded. Again, without being able to preserve very well on writing, right?
Yeah, writing.
How
was
difficult,
not that
or like
much.
virtually impossible, you know? So it's like you are hearing things orally over such a long time. Of course, things are going to change.
It's like a long, like 1,000-year-old game of telephone. It's bound to go wrong.
Spirit of Ahura Mazda. Sometimes Ahura Mazda also, but maybe he's also the Holy Spirit of Ahura Mazda. Sometimes Ahura Mazda also has a parent called Zurvan, who is time itself, but that's considered heresy at this point. Look, we don't have a lot of time to get into it. Honestly, it's a very old religion. There have been many different interpretations over the last 3,000 years. I'm really just simplifying and providing the most commonly accepted current beliefs. So keep that in mind, and as always, there's more information in the description. Opposed to Ahura Mazda is Angra Maniyu, the destructive spirit, and his evil minions known as Devas. Angra Maniyu is the complete polar opposite of Ahura Mazda. He is darkness, deceit, death, and decay. He is a corrupting parasite seeking to destroy Ahura Mazda's creation and is responsible for all negative things in the world.
This is exactly the way Shaitan, or the devil, in Islam is described. He is the person that's going to come to us at all angles to take us away from the straight path.
Not just him, but his, like...
Yeah, and there's Shaitan, Iblis, the devil, the main guy. And then there is other shayateen, which is like underlings basically, that are doing his work. Yeah. So it's very similar.
Yeah. Not just
almost
Islam,
like 99.9%.
Christianity, Judaism, it's all so similar.
Mazda is light, and Angra Maniyu is darkness. Ahura Mazda is the creator, and Angra Maniyu the destroyer. Ahura Mazda created light, fire, compact Japanese vehicles, joy, humanity, puppies probably. Angra Maniyu gave the world disease, rust, mold, darkness, and that little piece of skin that pops up around your fingernail.
So we would actually, again, from an Islamic point of view, disagree with the whole creation being from like an evil being like Satan. We believe that Allah has created the possibility for all these outcomes. He created disease. He created all these realities without God, making this a part of reality, which is simply not exist, right? And we believe this is formed as a way of testing us, because all of this is temporary, to see how we react, handle these kind of situations. And then in the afterlife, if you are permitted into Jannah or paradise, then you don't experience any of these hardships anymore.
That hurts so much. Why, Angra Maniyu? Why? Zoroastrians think everything is a battle between these two opposites. Ahura Mazda represents the truth, Angra Maniyu the lie. For humans, life is a constant choice between the truth and the lie, which may be difficult because Angra Maniyu can be very deceiving. Before time began, Ahura Mazda and Angra Maniyu were separated by an infinite void. They respectively lived in infinite light and infinite darkness. Then Ahura Mazda created the physical, or Gittig, world. Angra Maniyu crawled into this new world.
One thing I want to also talk about is how this kind of period of nothingness or void, then the universe or creation or reality as you know it is kind of birthed into existence, which is like echoing the Big Bang kind of type of thing. Like there's a singularity, nothing really beyond that, to our knowledge, and then boom, that's when all these separations happen and the galaxies form and the planets, all this. It's very interesting that these old faiths have these kind of descriptions that are very that are in alignment with
to what recent scientific discoveries. But yeah, so something I don't think we believe is there's eternal light and eternal darkness. Yeah. Allah was eternal. There wasn't anything except Allah. There wasn't any darkness because Allah himself is the all-powerful.
Like there's no eternal force of evil.
Yeah. Say that's something that's a little bit different. But the story so far is like 95% very similar.
And polluted it. They made the ocean salty. They turned the good earth into desert, killed the first human, made plants wither, and polluted fire with smoke. We now live in a time Zoroastrians refer to as the Gumezishin, or the mixture. Good and evil, truth, and the lie both exist together in our world. But Angra Manyu's presence is temporary. They are a stain on the world rather than a permanent fixture. Zoroastrians see the physical world as a trap that Ahura Mazda lured Angra Manyu into. Now trapped in the physical world, Angra Manyu can be defeated slowly by the good thoughts, good words, and good deeds of humans working with Ahura Mazda. 2. Heaven and Hell. Zoroastrians believe that when a person dies, their soul leaves their body. Their soul is then led to the Bridge of Judgment. Above this bridge lies...
Bro, Sirat.
Yeah, I know. But I don't think there's not going to be like an America's Got Talent thing up there. But yeah, this is similar to Islam. It's called the Sirat. It's the bridge every human has to pass to go to Jannah or fall into Jahannam. So this is literally like some, you might like imagine it looks like that. Obviously we don't know, but
It's heaven, below, hell. Here the soul's good and bad deeds are weighed on a scale, depending on the balance of good to evil.
seems very similar.
Wow.
Evil deeds, the soul ascends to heaven, a paradise of infinite bliss called the abode of song, or falls down to hell to suffer, quote, long age of misery, darkness, bad food, and the crying of woe. This is called England. I mean, this is called
Your people, dude. Oh my god.
What the heck? That's hilarious.
There is also a medium place for people who are neither good nor evil, where they kind of just float and experience nothing. Servants, as well as masters, can reach paradise. People will be judged according to how they chose to live their lives, rather than wealth or prestige. For Zoroastrians, death represents the highest form of pollution. Death only exists because of Angra Manyu. Upon the death of a Zoroastrian, a priest will be called to perform a ceremony, after which the soul of the person will no longer be considered connected to the body. The family then says their...
Doesn't really connect to... How can this part be true, but then heaven and hell still exist? So death only exists because Angra Manyu, but whatever they call God, there is the test to go over the bridge. It doesn't seem to connect 100%. Doesn't really make sense. Because if the devil didn't exist, then humans would just live forever. Basically.
Maybe their theology explains that's why heaven was created, because Angra Manyu destroyed this world and introduced death into
would
it.
have died. Maybe.
I don't know.
goodbyes without touching the body, and the body will be placed on a stone slab and carried away by special corpse bearers. Since dead bodies are so polluting, Zoroastrians would never think to pollute any of the sacred elements with them, those being fire, water, earth, etc. So the traditional method to dispose of bodies, used for thousands of years, has been the Tower of Silence. Within these open-roofed stone towers, located on the top of barren hills, bodies will be laid to rest on stone slabs, as to not pollute the earth, and then eaten.
That's wild.
Kind of weird.
The vultures are coming in on a field day.
Ew.
Wow. I know you're thinking of Avatar, by the way. Seconds ago.
By vultures, normally within a few hours. The bones are bleached in the sun and quickly disintegrate into dust. By feeding the birds, the deceased offers up one final good deed of charity before crossing over the bridge. However, in the 1930s, the Iranian government banned the use of the towers, and currently towers in India are suffering from a shortage of birds due to increased urbanization and pollution. Today, many Zoroastrian communities use special burial grounds or have turned to electrical cremation, or even using solar reflectors to harness the power of the sun to break down the bodies rather than polluting fire.
Exactly like the Sun Warrior episode where Zuko had to reflect the sword to get inside that temple because it wasn't the solar, what is it called, the summer solstice. Exactly the same thing.
3. The Apocalypse. The battle between Ahura Mazda and Angra Manyu will continue for thousands of years, but eventually a savior, or Soshant, will be born to a virgin mother who will lead. But eventually a savior, or Soshant, Angra Manyu, will continue for thousands of years, but eventually a savior, or Soshant, will be born to a virgin mother.
Sounds like Jesus or Isa alayhi salam.
Okay.
Who will lead people against the forces of evil and bring about the end times. The earth will be swallowed by fire, molten metal will cover everything. The good people will pass through this molten river, while the bad people will burn and be purified. The gates of hell will open, The souls of the damned will be released and redeemed, and everyone will live together in eternal bliss.
Wow, so everyone is eventually escapes hell.
Honestly, it all sounds pretty metal. Angra Maniyu, finally defeated by Ahura Mazda, and humanity's good thoughts, words and deeds will be tossed back into the black abyss they crawled out of and defeated forever. This last judgment/apocalypse is called the Frasho Kuridi, meaning renewal, as in the renewal of Ahura Mazda's originally perfect creation. 4. The 3 Gs. The most important concept in Zoroastrianism after Ahura Mazda is Asha. This is an ancient Avestan word and is difficult to translate. Asha is truth, wisdom, goodness, justice, perfection, order and progress all rolled into one word. Asha is the path of Ahura Mazda. Zoroastrians try their best to follow the path of Asha. To help humanity follow Asha, Ahura Mazda gave them Vohu Mana, or good mind. This allowed humans to recognize right from wrong. Good mind, or good mind. Help humanity follow Asha, Ahura Mazda gave them Vohu Mana, or good mind. This allowed humans to recognize right from wrong. Good mind lets us see injustice and feel that it is unjust. Through good mind, Ahura Mazda gave humans free will. This means a lot to Zoroastrians because choice is extremely important to their beliefs. From our good mind, we can have good thoughts, and from good thoughts follow good words, and then good deeds. Doing good thoughts, good words, and good deeds is the core of Zoroastrian belief. Good deeds such as taking part in your community, supporting others through tough times, standing up against injustice, fighting poverty, nursing the sick, and subscribing to educational YouTube channels all help in the battle against Angra
We're
Maniyu.
also an educational YouTube channel, so you guys should subscribe to us as well. But all these things are similar to Islam, like literally 100%.
Yeah.
Helping others, feeding the needy, doing good words and good deeds, subscribing to our channel, all good things.
This is why in India, Zoroastrians are known for their support of orphanages, shelters, and many different charities. It was Zoroaster that said, "Happiness comes to them who bring happiness to others." 5. Fire. Zoroastrians see fire as the sacred symbol of Ahura Mazda. It is considered to be pure and represents the truth. Inside Zoroastrian fire temples, their priests conduct all rituals in front of fire because it shows the presence of Ahura Mazda. But the fire is never actually worshipped itself. This is very important. Zoroastrians do not worship fire. Zoroastrianism also isn't a congregational religion. Most worship is done at home, and Zoroastrians tend to only go to fire temples during the 7 holy days or festivals they have each year. The most sacred fires in Zoroastrianism need to be made up of fire from 16 different sources, one of which needs to be ignited by lightning. 6. The Avesta.
So yeah, even though they don't worship fire, for us as Muslims, there's basically worshipping fire. It's kind of the way we would also kind of see Catholics venerating saints. They're like venerating fire, and you're associating fire with God. So we as Muslims would basically say that is worship.
It's like on the scale.
For our definition as Muslims.
Avesta is the holy book of the Zoroastrians, and one of the oldest scriptures. It is written in an ancient language known as Avestan, which was the language spoken by Zoroaster roughly 3,500 years ago. The Avesta contains hymns from Zoroaster himself, known as gathas. These 17 gathas are deeply important to Zoroastrians, and most Zoroastrian belief is based on them. Due to the violence Zoroastrians have suffered throughout history, only a fraction of the Avesta survives today. For example, Zoroastrians believe that when Alexander the Great conquered the Achaemenid Empire, he burned the royal palace at Persepolis and its library to the ground, destroying a complete copy of the Avesta, written in gold on 12,000 goat skins. This might be why he isn't called Alexander the Great in Iran, but rather Alexander the Accursed. Even more of the Avesta was lost during the Arab, Turkic and Mongol invasions of Iran. Yeah, Zoroastrians really couldn't catch a break there for a while. You can read the Avesta online for free, and a lot of it is extremely beautiful and thought-provoking. But if you're a dunce like me, you'll love this section about how hedgehogs, known as the dog with the prickly back, serve Ahura Mazda, and turtles have sided with Angra Maniyu. Or the following chapter,
Don't do my turtles like this.
atoning for the murder of a water dog, which is about how you'll be punished if you kill an otter. So, you should be like the prickly boy and the water dog and help fight against evil. When the founder of the Achaemenid Empire, Cyrus the Great, freed the Jews from Babylon, he not only showed the world the religious tolerance that Zoroastrian rulers would become known for, but he changed world history at the same time. For freeing the Jews, Cyrus was praised as a messiah in the book of Isaiah. This meant that Jewish thinkers were obviously quite receptive to Zoroastrians and Zoroastrian ideas. It is in that book of Isaiah that Yahweh is for the first time spoken of as a single creator god, like Ahura Mazda. The Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Well, that's very interesting. Ahura Mazda and the God in the Old Testament are spoke very similarly.
It's like he's implying
because of the history of Cyrus the Great, possibly helping the Jews escape from persecution. Yeah. Very interesting.
Owe a lot to Zoroastrianism, because while Zoroaster's teachings don't sound too revolutionary today, ideas like one all-powerful God, a cosmic battle between a loving God and their satanic nemesis, angels and archangels, a heavenly judgment that places a person in heaven or hell, and a final cataclysmic judgment that would purify the world and bring about the kingdom of God, where the good will live in eternal paradise, which is a Persian word, were all brand new ideas at that time. This means that while small today, Zoroastrianism has influenced the most sacred beliefs of billions of people. Even George R.R. Martin borrowed some Zoroastrian thought to make his religions in A Song of Ice and Fire, as you can see here.
Lord of Light is based in part on a couple of the dualist religions that actually existed in our world. One of them, the I can never say that.
Zoroastrian.
Yeah, whatever that is, yes. And the other
Wow.
Good thoughts, good words, and good deeds are one of the most important things in Zoroastrianism, but they can be followed by literally anyone. A simple good deed you can do today to improve the world just a little bit is using tab for a cause. Tab for...
That was very interesting. I did not expect that many similarities to be present between Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and Zoroastrianism.
To be honest, out of any religion I've ever heard of, Zoroastrianism sounds the most similar. Actually, no, never mind. There's very similar concepts, but it seems like the concepts of heaven and hell were similar, but some stuff like evil always being there, the different like minor gods, but it seems like, in my point of view,
not really gods but immortals.
Yeah, since we believe that every nation had a prophet, I think maybe this was a true prophet and it got corrupted over time.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, but a lot of all the core beliefs are talked about, they are in Islam and Abrahamic faiths in a very similar sense.
And I guess one would ask, okay, so then why do you believe in Islam when it seems, or like Christianity or Judaism, if it seems like it was influenced by other religions like Zoroastrianism? And the reason being is because some other things about these religions make it like just undoubtedly true in our minds. In Islam, for example, like you have, scientific. When I say scientific statements, I mean statements that science would agree with, right? Like female bees being the ones that do work, or the origin of the universe, all living things have been created or having water. There are several prophecies that have come true, both in the Hadith and the Quran. So it's like these kind of things all together. And then it's like, okay, so how do we even know that this was actually said? Or then we have a lot of preservation. Islam, probably the most preserved religion from the ancient world in the sense. Like none of these modern religions, I mean, we don't take them seriously, but we're talking about, and that's a whole other topic, but we're talking about in consideration of like the major world religions. Of the major religions of the world, Islam is the most historic in its manuscripts and its tradition and its and it's pretty much in its preservation and historicity overall. Secular historians agree that the Prophet Muhammad was a real person, whereas historians don't consider Moses or they believe or have determined that Moses and Abraham are completely, you can't prove that they existed. They're historically unverifiable. So yeah, there are definitely differences. Islam acknowledges this by saying that every nation was sent prophets and messengers, and they would be saying the same thing. One God, there's evil in the world, do good, heaven, hell, all these concepts, angels, right? So to us, it's not worrying or daunting or surprising. Rather, it's fascinating. Like, wow, okay, so this religion here, maybe there was something to it.
It definitely probably was, but obviously over time, it got changed because we don't know anything about the preservation of their teachings. It was written down. stuff like that. The original thing that Zoroaster taught. But yeah, I do wish there was. I know in the Hindu explained video there was a reference to Avatar. I wish there was another reference in this one about the sun warriors. I would really like that. Okay. But yeah, if you guys like this video, please let us know. Leave any feedback in the comments and any clarifications for us so we can learn more about Zoroastrianism. And Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.